This is a quick tour of how to enable HTTPS for the Rocket MVS Toolkit. Some boilerplate first. Please take a second to read the disclaimer and my bio. A few things you need to do before we get started. You need to obtain an SSL certificate from a certificate authority like GoDaddy. For our purposes, this needs to be an X509.pem certificate. It's important to note that the certificate must reference the host name in the URL of your web service calls. Otherwise, browsers, curl, and other tools used to consume web services will fail. When ordering your certificate via your certificate signing request, or CSR, make sure you include both your website domain and the host name of your MVS Toolkit server when they are different names, and especially if they reside on different servers. It's also important to note that self-signed or self-generated certificates will not be trusted by browsers, curl, and the like. These will work for the purposes of testing web service operations within the Toolkit client IDE, so they're suitable for testing web services in the IDE, but not in the browser. You will also need to install the 32-bit version of the Java Development Kit, specifically JDK version 1.8. The installer can be downloaded from oracle.com, and you're going to need to establish an account to get the download. You'll also need to download and install OpenSSL. The latest and greatest version should be fine. These are the steps you'll follow to create and install the new Keystore. Convert the .pem certificate to a .pkcs12 certificate using OpenSSL. Create the new Keystore file using the JDK KeyTool utility. Make sure you use a name other than mvtk.ks so you don't clash with our deployed file. Import the PKCS12 certificate into the Keystore using KeyTool. Install the new Keystore on the MVS Toolkit server using the Toolkit client IDE. Configure the MVS server to use the new Keystore using the IDE. You need to verify that your .pem certificate is in the correct form. I bring that up because I've seen instances where someone obtained a PEM from a certificate authority that did not contain both elements, which caused the OpenSSL utility to fail while trying to convert a .pem to a .pkcs12 certificate. A proper X509.pem certificate contains two sections, private key section and certificate section. These two parts of the certificate are base64 encoded and delimited by begin and end captions. You can use Notepad or a similarly simple tool to examine the certificate and verify its form. Note that some certificate authorities will provide this same kind of file with a different file extension, like .cer or something else. The name is not important, the content is. Additionally, you can use the OpenSSL utility to verify that you got all of the domain names correctly signed into the certificate. Using the OpenSSL command as shown will display all of the information. Normally the website domain would be the common name, or CN, and the MVS server would be included as a subject alternative name. If for some reason all of the domain names do not show, you need to go back to your certificate authority and get that corrected. While you're here, remember to make note of the certificate's validity period. You want to be prepared to replace the certificate before it expires, not Monday morning after it expired behind your back. Now it's time to convert your .pem certificate to a PKCS12 certificate. On my system, I created a directory off the root called /certs and placed the .pem certificate in there. In my example, you can also see a file called certinfo. This file was created by adding /redirect to the previous slide's OpenSSL command to redirect output to a file, so I now have a handy reference. Use the OpenSSL command as shown to convert the .pem to a .pkcs12. In my example, I'm using cert.pem and cert.pkcs12. You would substitute your certificate name. Enter the export password, making sure it's the same password that you'll be using later when importing this into the Keystore and configuring the toolkit to use this certificate. When you're done, you'll see a new .pkcs12 certificate file in that directory. Now let's create your own custom Keystore. Using your editor of choice, create the script shown in the slide, substituting your values for those highlighted in blue. Please note that the content of the highlighted in the yellow is a single script line and displayed here because of its presentation line wrap. For Windows, this will be a .bat file, and for Unix, this will be a .sh file. Now let's run your script. As each line executes, it will be displayed. When it's done, you will find your .ks file in the directory. Now it's time to import your .pkcs12 file into the newly created Keystore. Execute the commands shown, substituting your own file names. When prompted for the destination and source Keystore passwords, make sure you use the single password you're using for everything. You should see the import completed status line with 1 success and 0 failures. If not, try again, as you probably fat-fingered a password or something. If you continue to have trouble, please contact Rocket D3 support. Now let's install and configure your new Keystore file in the MVS Toolkit. First, move the new Keystore file to the Toolkit server directory. Please note that the default locations for the server directory on the Windows and Linux platforms as shown on the slide. If you installed the toolkit somewhere else, find the server directory under the MVS directory. Now let's configure the toolkit to use the new Keystore. Launch the Toolkit IDE client. Right-click on the web service provider and click Connect. Once connected, double-click on the web service provider and get into edit mode. Down near the bottom, find and click the Use SSL Connection checkbox. Unclick the Use Default Settings checkbox. The dialog will now expand to allow you to customize your settings. Enter the fully pathed name of the Keystore. If your MVS server is on Windows, you can use the Browse button. If your MVS server is on Linux, sorry, you have to enter the full path by hand. Enter and confirm both the Keystore and key passwords. And by now you should know that they are the same if you were listening. To save your changes, either hit the little floppy diskette icon in the upper left, and anyone under 40, ask an older guy what the floppy diskette is. Or you can X out of the web service provider edit dialog and you'll be asked to save or not save, to which you would answer save. Time to test. Right-click on one of your web services and click Test. Verify that the endpoint starts with HTTPS and not HTTP. Pick a simple test, supply a value if necessary, then press the Execute button below. A new dialog will pop up displaying your JSON or XML response. If not, try again or contact Rocket D3 support. Click back to the test dialog and highlight or copy the request at the bottom. Launch your browser and paste the request in the address box and press Enter. At this point, you should get your expected JSON or XML result. If you get some sort of error, try restarting the MVS server and repeat the test. If it still fails, contact Rocket D3 support. The failure probably has something to do with the disparity between the certificate's common name and/or subject alternative name and the host name you're using for the MVS server. It could also be that the MVS server service did not restart when you saved the web service provider, so try restarting the service. Thanks for listening. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions or problems, please contact Rocket D3 support.